Morning. Today is Tuesday, August 20th. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioners Soboroff, Decker, Bonner, and Goldsmith are present, and we have a quorum.
Okay. Item number one.
Item number one, election of officers. We have two comment cards before we.
Okay.
We have Wayne from Encino and Mr. Herman.
Okay.
As usual, Sandra Fatso Figueroa is not here today, but that's okay. We still got a quorum of 4 niggas. So, which one of us niggas is gonna be the president of the city sitting fucking commission? We have such a goddamn rogues gallery to select for president. We got ourselves the nonprofit witch from the east with her homeless brother. We got the bald-headed developer motherfucker. We got ourselves Bonner, a.k.a. Boner. And then we got Eileen Decker, who, unfortunately, I'm retaining a client that Miss Decker gave a 27-month sentence to while she cooperated with the federal government as a witness. So we're going to have to talk more about that shit. So who are we going to pick today? It's time to take the gavel away from the bald-headed Jew. It's time to take away his gavel, which is an extension of his wannabe deck that he doesn't have. It's time to end the tyranny. It's time to end the threats. And so today, the only answer is that we have to put the Bonner man in as president to try to give a chance to talk. So when I talk about the Ashkenazi Jew terrorist Steve Sober, I don't get that shit up my ass every time. And only Mr. Bonner understands, because Mr. Bonner is currently cooperating with the FBI and the grand jury. So we need him to get the gavel. And then finally, Miss Eileen Decker in the near future will also be cooperating on her federal subpoena. Fuck you, Steve.
Mr. Herman, please.
So you see, everybody, we have several individuals for re-election, starting with Steve Soboroff, the president, on his way out, Eileen Decker, vice president, Dale Bonner, Sandra Figueroa, who goes by the last name Villa, who's absent for the record, and Shane Murphy, whose brother, like me, suffers from mental health due to post-traumatic stress caused by the Los Angeles City Council and my employer. That's why I'm here. I'm looking for someone to save me, a white nigger Jew, so I can vote and have equal access to public election meetings. So that way officers can enjoy my public comment in their little shuffle of a laugh. Good point, Herman. Fuck 'em. But I think it's time that Mr. Soboroff steps aside and allows Mr. Bonner to bury the Jews and send them back to Israel. Yes, 42 U.S.C. 1983. Fuck the Jew developer. We're sending them back to Israel on an affidavit. This way, we can have a real advocate, Mr. Dale, to protect us in our First Amendment so we can all be heard. So you see, robust, open comments in a public hearing for elections of the new officers. It's time to see the bald guy step down and just listen into our rants and subject them to criticism at the highest level of the court's orders to mandate us as court reporters. Fuck you, Steve Soboroff.
Thank you. Nominations are now open for the position of president for fiscal year 2019-2020. Do we have any nominations?
Madam Secretary, I would like to nominate Eileen Decker for president of Los Angeles Police Commission.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Okay, you have your second?
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, if none, we will put the motion to a roll call vote. Commissioner Soboroff?
Aye.
Commissioner Decker? Aye. Commissioner Bonner? Aye. Commissioner Goldsmith? Aye. The ayes have it. This item passes unanimously. Congratulations, President Decker.
Thank you, the gavel. Thank you so much, President Soboroff. We'll now open nominations for the position of Vice President. Are there any nominations for the position of Vice President for fiscal year 2019-20?
I have one. I haven't had an opportunity to talk with my friend Shane, but I'd like to nominate her as Vice President.
And I will second that motion. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll now put the motion to a roll call vote. Mr. Soboroff?
Aye.
Decker is an aye. Mr. Bonner?
Aye.
Ms. Goldsmith? Aye. Aye. Congratulations. The ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Congratulations, Vice President Goldsmith. Briefly, I'll make a few comments this morning. Since the end of October last year, I've had the great privilege of serving on this commission. During this time, I've heard from the men and women in the department, and I've seen how dedicated they are to serving our city and working diligently on behalf of the mission of this department. And I've met with and heard with many residents and community groups and leaders who all work diligently in the corners of the city to make it a better place for all of us to live. And I've greatly appreciated the insights that Angelenos have shared with me about what they expect and need from their police department. It's been a privilege to meet with so many people who truly care about this city. So thank you, colleagues, for the honor to allow me to continue to do this work and to broaden it as president of the commission. Thank you to the mayor for giving me this opportunity to serve my community. And I also want to thank now former President Soboroff for his many years of service, both as a member of this commission and his 2 terms as president. Thank you, Steve. I do intend to keep my remarks brief, but I'd like to address a few priorities and issues that I believe we need to continue to work on, and we need to work on with even greater urgency as we move forward. As commissioners, we need to continue the effort to make this department's work clear and accessible to all Angelenos. By working together towards this goal, we can help expand Angelenos' trust in the LAPD. It's especially important to do this work with communities that feel disconnected from this department or who do not trust this department. We must ensure we strengthen these relationships by hiring a police force whose officers reflect the racial, ethnic, and gender diversity of our city. As we hire these officers, we have to make sure that they have what they need. They put their lives on the line for us every day, and it's imperative that they have the necessary resources and training to do their job safely and effectively. We must also continue to do the work towards achieving all the goals of the Department of Justice's 21st Century Policing Report, a report adopted by this commission, and a report that I am personally very familiar with. Implementing the report's recommendations will make this a more transparent and trusted police department, and I'll be working with the Inspector General to ensure we get an update on the department's progress in adopting the recommendations detailed in that report. To ensure the full adoption of the report's recommendations and intent, we must also ensure that the de-escalation practices, a policy passed by this commission, are embedded throughout the culture of the department. Towards that end, in the weeks ahead, I will be asking that we approve a request to have the IG's office conduct a review of de-escalation within the department and ensure that the training and implementation of this policy is where we expect it to be. Further consistent with the 21st Century Policing Report, we must bring more community groups to the table. Towards that goal, and working with Commissioner Goldsmith, we are organizing a commission meeting in November for the sole purpose to discuss community policing and to hear from a variety of community-based organizations in the city. We'll provide more on that in the weeks to come. And I believe I speak for all members of this commission when I say we want to hold some of our meetings out in the community. It's been a long-standing of this tradition of this commission to do so for many, many years. I can date it back to at least 2009, but I'm sure the tradition predates that. However, I have to note that many members of the community have expressed concern to me that the meetings get shut down before people who attend these meetings have a chance and opportunity to speak. Obviously, meetings in the community that get shut down before the public have a chance to speak serves absolutely no one's interest. And I hope everyone can agree on that as we try to work together to restore that long-standing tradition of this commission. One of the most important functions of this commission is the review of use of force cases. I'm committed to conducting thorough and fair reviews of these cases. These reviews are some of the most important, most sensitive, and frankly, most sobering matters that we must contend with as commissioners. And we must make sure that we impartially review facts and apply policy to achieve a resolution that is consistent with the law and consistent with the policies this commission has passed. Fairness and impartiality is important to this process. And of course, if we see policies not being implemented in a manner consistent with our expectations or community standards, then it's our obligation to change that policy. In my experience as a prosecutor, as a deputy mayor, I saw firsthand what can happen to a police agency that deviates from its mission and proceeds to systematically lose the trust of the public it serves. It's a terrible thing to witness, both for the public and for the men and women of that agency. And as a commission, it's our responsibility to ensure that that does not happen to this department. And it remains responsive to the community it serves. To the members of the public who attend these meetings, and to those who do not regularly attend but have told me they're deeply interested in the work of this commission, we're not always going to agree on the best way to move forward with our mutual goals for this department and for this city. To the extent we disagree, I want you to know that I do respect your views. I'm a firm believer in the First Amendment, and I'm committed to listening to you and hearing your perspectives. At the same time, I know my colleagues on this commission expect that I will follow the rules that they pass for conducting the commission meetings, and I do intend to follow them. As a police commissioner, our role is to provide civilian oversight to our sworn officers who protect one of the most fundamental needs of Angelenos, and that is, of course, the need to be safe. As President Commission, I'll try to earnestly carry out this responsibility so that we uphold our values and the values that the justice system is built on: equality, fairness, and dignity. And we will strive to ensure that these values are reflected in everything that the LAPD does. Thank you very much, colleagues, and I look forward to working with you in the year ahead. And now back to the regular agenda of this meeting. There is one matter on the agenda, and that is the department's report dated August 15th, 2019, regarding the delay of a critical incident video release. And as I read the matter, colleagues, this matter is
Going to do some real formal business there.
Yes,
Madam President, give us just a moment.
Forgive me for not knowing the protocol. So the item number 2A on the agenda is the delay of the critical incident release video. And as I read this matter, colleagues, the single issue before us is whether we vote to comply with the court order, which has ordered the LAPD to withhold release of this video. And pursuant to the policy previously passed by this commission, if the delay continues more than 28 days, the matter must be presented to the commission. Is there any questions from members of the commission on this matter?
Yeah. Who's the question directed to?
Who from the department? Please introduce yourself, please.
Josh Rubenstein, Public Information Director.
Yeah, so my question is that the order indicates that the video is not to be released for 1 year from the date of the shooting. And the question is at the conclusion of that 1 year, is the intent to release the video automatically, or is there some additional process that's going to be required in order to have it released?
As long as that order has been lifted, we will release it once that expires. So there will be it will automatically release at that point.
Because we would be clearly beyond the 45-day requirement, so it would be released. The expectation would be it would be released. Do you know what the court's reasoning is relative to the 1 year time period? Is that just an assumption as to how long it'll take to complete an investigation?
To make it through the process, I think they just gave themselves that time. But I don't have any other further insight into why they chose 1 year.
If there's an investigation that is concluded earlier than a year or something, would it be our intent to seek leave of court to release the video earlier than a year?
I see no reason for us not to release it when there is no court order telling us to hold on it. So if it should end earlier, I see no issue with us moving forward with that.
And the last question I had here is, and maybe this is implied, but this is relative to surveillance video. So this is not body worn.
No, they didn't have. There was no body worn of this that we had any access to.
So this is not even video is this even video the department has in its custody?
We do have it in our. They did provide that video to us, so it is in our custody. It's third-party video, and by the policy, we are to release any video that we have in our possession within that 45-day period, and of course, that court order supersedes that.
Is there, since it's a surveillance video, is there some party other than the Los Angeles Police Department that also has a copy of the video?
I am not sure of the custody chain on that video. I'm only aware of the Force Investigation Division that has the video in its possession. Again, because this investigation is Corona's investigation, I don't know how they have distributed it or how they got it or how they secured it.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Are there public comment cards on item 2A?
We have 4 cards. We have Wayne from Encino, Mr. Herman, Jonathan Foster, and Adam Smith.
Mr. Herman?
Wayne
I'm
from-
sorry. Yes, sorry. Sorry, sir.
Excuse me. Would it be appropriate to ask one more question of the department before the public comment starts?
Of course.
The other question is, when this video is released, the other videos that are released by the department come with, typically, yours is the first face that we see that kind of explains, what the video is in the context. Is a video like this that's not captured by body worn, is that released with the same admonitions, or is it released in some more raw fashion?
Same admonitions, the same way that the policy sets out. We put it into context like we would for any critical incident.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Spindler, thank you.
I got your police video right here. See? It's easy. I got all the body cams, all the videos, and I want to thank Josh Rubenstein for helping me get them. He's such a nice man. He went from all the way up from a weatherman all the way down to paper shuffler for the cops and the cover-up. Give a hand. That's right. That's the way we do it. That's right. That's how you roll in L.A. Can't make it in the media? Become a media bitch for the LAPD. So, as you see, you got to get your video information. All you got to do is pay $445 and you get all the video you want. Yes, sir. March 30th, 2017. A historic event in human history. Now, you know what happened, right? Nigga sitting in his car, on the cell phone, just minding his own business. Minding his own business. And all of a sudden, 50 cops show up. Get out of the car. Well, what was I supposed to do? I get out of the car, and then they said, get down. And then some nice officers pointed an M16 with an M44 scope into my head when I was like this.
Mr. Spindler, the only issue before this commission is to whether follow the court order or not.
But there's a heard what? And all as I was doing was sitting in my car, minding my own goddamn business in Canoga Park. But you see, you don't let colored folks in that goddamn Ridgeline Jew neighborhood now. Driving while black, that's the only thing I was guilty of. Fuck the police department.
Mr. Herman.
Sounds like we got a new pencil neck. Yeah, the critical release of video policy. But back there in that book, it says there's a court order. And that falls under Government Code Section 6254. Riverside County Superior Court and Corona Police say, fuck LAPD. We're gonna delay the process so that a thorough investigation into this video hype of why you shoot an unarmed, disabled individual in a Costco, and on top of that, you shoot his parents. Unarmed parents. Ain't that a bitch? Manual 1420.55, June 14, 2015, 2019. And our former prosecutor, formerly Obama former employee, we find out that Costco even has surveillance. And they're not going to hide shit from us regarding Mr. Joshua Roberstein, because we want the truth. People know what you do with the video when you alter it. People know how you target people with your little video cams when you bring the threat management unit and do a surveillance on Armando Herman and Wayne Spindler at City Hall. But we know the truth. Two dumb American boys just trying to work their ass into life, and we get this bullshit about delay of critical incident videos. If you release the manual, release the shit, the truth will be heard, and this goddamn fool Joshua can go away.
Mr. Foster.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Foster. My dad enlisted in the United States military in 1957. He got out for a little while to deal with his dad, and he got back in and he did computers since 1958. And I heard about everything that was going to go on today by the time I was 5 in 1975. Touchscreen, video, all this stuff. And I think back, you know, if you got the critical incident video and you need to look at it, I mean, you think about a time when there was no video. So if they need some time to alter some stuff, you know, that's a problem, because alteration of the video is a crime. So, you know, why wouldn't you release it? That's, I guess, up to you. I haven't heard enough. But I also lived in Rochester, New York, where film was developed, where Kodak took the film and then he put them all together, and actually he took photos and put them all together, and then you could see movement, and he made film. And then, so then somebody made a computer, and then somebody else put a camera on the computer, on the cell phone. And in 1991, a guy was filming Rodney King get the crap beat out of him. I admit he driving 100 miles an hour up the street. That was a little too fast after I learned the entire story about him, but they weren't supposed to beat him. And so we got this far because of Rodney King. We got this far because somebody had the insight to put a camera on a cell phone. And so today you're going to make decisions if you're going to alter video. It's not exactly critical a body cam, but we're missing 22 minutes of Waukesha Wilson being killed in the jail, just like Epstein. He didn't kill himself; he got killed. So I don't believe that Waukesha Wilson killed herself. I believe she was murdered. And so this critical incident, when you go take time, it should be out tomorrow. That's because people saw it, but other people not seeing the video. What's the difference? God bless.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith?
And Madam President, we have 2 late cards for this item.
All right. Who are they, please?
Gina Viola and Ian Jamison.
All right. I'll allow that. Mr. Smith?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, like Kenneth French's parents, I'm also a parent. You know, I've just been thinking, like, parenting is tough, you know? I don't know if Mr. Rubenstein's a parent too, but sometimes I'm up late at night thinking, like, you know, about my kids and about what their future looks like, and it's tough to sleep. But for someone that pulls a salary creating narratives that blame victims of police violence for their own deaths, I'm wondering how you sleep at night, Mr. Rubenstein.
Ms. Viola?
I am so glad to have this opportunity to ask you to your face. How can you put those videos out? The Grishario Mack video was so edited, it looked like a music video. And then you stop right before his killing, and you put that out as data from the LAPD. Now this Costco video. You even have a wide shot of an empty Costco at the beginning of the video. You show that there's surveillance of Costco, and then don't include any of it in the video. How do you live with yourself with these videos? You do this because these meetings are held here on Tuesday mornings where the community can't come and speak about it. So you put those out because that's what most people are going to see. It is despicable. If you are going to release footage, you need to release all the footage, the unedited footage. I don't want to hear about Riverside holding it for a year. That's a lie. That's a lie. Everything you do is a lie. We know that. We're here. You know where I get my education? Here. Week after week. Not from the LA Times. I am educating myself to this process here in this room. Here in this room. So when I watch your videos, I know it's a lie. I know it's all smoke and mirrors. I know it's edited. I know music is added in. How can you score these videos? Who does that? Who does that? You're failed filmmakers. You do that because you know that's what people are paying attention to. And you know that these meetings are held at a place and a time where people can't come and find out the truth, like I've done. And like we are starting to bring more and more people here to find out the truth. So when they watch these despicable videos that you put out, they'll know. They'll know what I know. They'll know what we know. They're lies. Video lies.
We have one more speaker. I'll remind everyone the only issue before this commission is whether we follow a court order saying that it should not be released for 1 year. That's the issue before us today. Sir?
I don't really care. Assistant Chief of Police Robert Arcos, I don't know if you or Michael Moore or any of the other officials in the LAPD have read When Police Kill. It's a wonderful book by Robert Zimring, who is a professor of law at UC Berkeley and chair of the Criminal Justice Reform Program there. He analyzes the statistics of police officers killed every year and civilians killed every year by police, and what he has found is that between 2008 and 2013, 275 police officers were killed in line of duty, and of those, 268 were killed by handguns. It is all firearms driving police officer deaths. Do you know how many police officers were killed by blunt objects such as a fucking bottle? Zero.
Sir.
None of them. No,
Sir.
I'm not going to be shut up.
Sir,
The rule ought to be if a suspect does not represent a lethal threat to police, you do not fucking shoot.
Sir.
They do not represent a lethal threat, you don't shoot. And
Sir.
according to this book, if that reform were instituted in police departments across the country,
Sir,
we could
Mr.
reduce the number of people
Jamison?
killed every year by 30%.
Mr. Jamison?
And if that guy had been killed,
Sir?
that would have been full-out murder. He represented no lethal.
And we have no other cards on this item.
The matter before us, the request is to approve the department's report. Is there a motion? Is there a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
It passes 4-0. Thank you. Moving on to the report of the Chief of Police, Chief Argos.
Yep. Good morning, Commissioners. So the Chief's activity report for last week, the Chief attended the CENTCOM homelessness meeting with the mayor. He also attended the opening ceremony of the Special Olympics in Southern California at the Plain Pool. And today he's attending the services for CHP Officer Moye.
The 24-hour occurrence log, there are 4 incidents to report on, Commissioners. On August 14th, 2019 at 17:50 hours, uniformed officers assigned to Pacific Patrol Division responded to a radio call of a screaming man at Thornton Court and Pacific Avenue. Upon arrival, officers encountered the suspect, John Penny, who was initially armed with a glass bottle. The suspect refused to drop the bottle and approached the officers. Officers deployed a taser. However, it appears the darts did not strike the suspect. The suspect then armed himself with an approximately 3-foot-long wooden plank and again approached officers, which resulted in an officer-involved shooting. The suspect was struck once in the left arm and once in the left eye. Officers deployed 1 round from a beanbag shotgun and 1 40-millimeter round. Suspect Penny was treated at scene by members of the Los Angeles Fire Department and transported via rescue ambulance to UCLA Westwood Medical Center, where he was treated and cleared for booking. He was booked at Pacific Jail. No officers were injured during the incident. Force Investigation Division is handling this administrative investigation. That's incident number 1. On incident number 2, on August 8th.
Excuse me, members of the public, please allow the chief's report to take place, and then we'll have public comment. Thank you. Sir?
Incident number 2 occurred in Hollenbeck area. It's an officer-involved shooting with hits. On August 18th, 2019 at 23:25 hours, uniformed officers assigned to Hollenbeck area were assigned to a crime suppression detail in the area of East Alhambra Avenue and North Lombardi Boulevard. In a marked black and white SUV, as the officers were approaching a red traffic light southbound on Lombardi at Alhambra, the suspect fired 1 round at the officers. The round struck the driver's door of their SUV. The suspect ran north from location and then into an east-west alley just north of Alhambra. Officers made a U-turn and attempted to locate the suspect. The officers then observed the suspect on the north sidewalk of Alhambra. Officers exited their vehicle and the suspect fired at them again, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. The suspect then turned and fled east on Alhambra, where he confronted additional officers who were responding to the help call, resulting in a second OIS. The suspect was briefly treated at scene by LA Fire Department paramedics and then transported to USC-MC. He was later pronounced dead at the hospital. This is incident number 3 in Mission area, officer-involved shooting on August 19th at 16:40 hours. Mission patrol officers responded to a radio call of a family dispute at 13101 Ottoman Street. The PR was, the person reporting was the suspect's father and reported that his son had locked him out of his residence. When the officers arrived, they encountered the suspect on the front porch and attempted to communicate with him. After several minutes of dialogue with the suspect, he suddenly stepped back into his residence and removed a pistol from his waistband that had been concealed underneath his sweatshirt. He then pointed his weapon at the officers and fired at the officers, resulting in an OIS. The suspect retreated into his residence. However, moments later, he was seen running through a neighboring yard, and a second OIS occurred in the street as the suspect continued to run west on Ottoman Street. As the suspect approached the intersection at Arleta, he fled into a residence at 1314 Ottoman Street and then into the east-west alley immediately to the rear of the location. A responding Foothill GED gang unit observed the suspect in the alley and stopped their vehicle in the middle of Arleta near the mouth of the alley. The suspect again then raised his pistol in the direction of the officers, resulting in another OIS. The suspect dropped the pistol, collapsed to the ground, and was taken into custody without further incident. He was examined at scene by the Los Angeles Fire Department and was pronounced dead shortly thereafter. Incident number 4 is 77th barricaded suspect on August 19th at 22:40 hours at 1331 West 48th Street. An OIS occurred after a lengthy standoff with the barricaded suspect. The suspect was located in the attic when one SWAT officer fired at the suspect. The suspect was not hit, and there was no injuries to the officer. The suspect was taken into custody without further incident, and 2 weapons were recovered at the scene. An update on Part 1 crime for the city. Homicides are down 163 versus 164 from last year. Our aggravated assaults are up 1.5% for a total violent crime decrease of minus 4.3%. Our property crime for the city is down 7.6% for a total Part 1 crime of 6.8% reduction. Victims shot year to date still show an increase of 3.5%. Our gang-related crime is at 2.9% increase from last year. Our officer-involved shootings for the year total, including the ones I just spoke to, are 19 versus 24 in 2018, resulting in fatalities 8 versus 10 from last year. Our personnel status. For sworn department and municipal police appointment, we have 9,967. Civilian personnel deployed.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not interrupt, and public comment will be starting shortly. Thank you.
Civilian personnel deployed is 2,942, and total reserve officers is 392, and our cadet numbers are at 1,484. That concludes the chief's report.
Thank you. Questions from members of the commission? Thank you. Public comment cards. How many cards do we have for the
We have
chief's report?
15 comment cards. The first three, Wayne from Encino, Mr. Herman, and Jeff Dalshad.
Mr. Spindler?
I know your tricks. There you go. Because I'm a rap artist. I know when it's on. There we go. Now, Steve Soboroff not asking a question about the report? He's already getting ready to retire. Look at his bald head. Oh, boy. They gotta ask the questions about the chief's report. Isn't it nice? 2 out of 3 killed. Good job. Let's give him a hand. That's right. That's the way you save the taxpayers a trial, by killing the suspect and then hiding the evidence. That's a good job. And that's the way T-Fang used to run his department in the 1890s when he was a police chief in Marietta. He used to do the same shit. That's the way Eileen Decker ran the U.S. Attorney's Office, would send them pretty little FBI agents out to informants that would not cooperate, because Eileen Decker says, "You're going to cooperate." And they say, "No, I'm not." And then they get a knock, knock. "Who's there?" Boom, boom. "I'll cooperate." That's it. That's boom, boom, Eileen Decker up there. That's right. So she knows good policing. And good policing is you see a suspect with a little 3-foot stick in his hand, use a cannon. That's right. That's what you do. Good excessive force. Now, don't worry about it. You get sued, but good news, and I got my list of judges. I know all of them paid off. I got them all over there in the Moss Courthouse. They're all paid off. They're paid off through January 1st, 2022. So again, if you sue these people, you're fucked. You go to federal court, you're fucked. You go to the FBI, you're fucked. You go everywhere. Fucked, fucked, fucked. So let's all say it. Fuck the police.
Mr. Herman? Madam Secretary, who's the speaker after Mr. Herman?
Jeff Dalshad, followed by Jonathan Foster and Adam Smith.
So we hear about unreasonable force against individuals. We heard about the issue at Costco, no release of the true video or of videos, because people in this commission believe that the crisis of killing a disabled man is within reason of the department's policy, pattern, and practice. But I find that offensive, just like the group of individuals here today, as when you killed Ezell Ford, who simply was sleeping on a sidewalk. Now, I wouldn't see that happen to Miss Shane Murphy's brother, who's out there by the beach, because when I witness him out there, he's enjoying himself over a cup of warm tea. Not like my dumb ass here working for the advocacy of people to not be criminalized simply because we have a disability, man. Do you like people hurting your disabled, profound brother like that? I don't. I see him as a friend.
Mr. Herman, focus your remarks on the
I'm
chief.
focusing it on the department's modification when it comes to de-escalation against people with disabilities. Maybe my invisible disability prevents you from killing me. But see, if you kill me, I've been in every newspaper up and down Pasadena, Downey, Norwalk, here in LA, and matter of fact, I've been in the opinion. So when you kill me, all evidence points to the fact that I'm an advocate against police practice and policy. And as Mr. Spindler gently put it, fuck the police.
Sir.
Hello, board, and hello, people. I guess I listened to your report, Assistant Deputy Chief Arcos, and it's nice. It's kind of dry. There are some things that I would like to be included in these types of chief's reports that are not. I was across the street from a building on Sunset yesterday called Big Blue, also known as a Scientology building. In line with the issue, I guess you guys like to talk about gangs and stuff. So, you know, some people here would say there's also gang issues or marginal issues like gang issues when it comes to corporations or churches or government entities and things like that. There is an ongoing issue, I guess, with a woman named Shelley Miscavige, who is the wife of the leader of this church. From what I understand from my own education on the matter, there was a missing persons report filed on her by Leah Remini, the celebrity or whatever. And from what I read about it, it was not really followed up with her to her satisfaction or to others' satisfaction. From what I've read about this issue, I have the opinion this person may be dead, and this church and leader of the church is maintaining that she is somewhere alive, has not been seen in public for 10 years. It's nice that you're putting women on the board, but you know, it would be nice too if you would kind of look after issues of violence against women. That could be something in the chief's report. Thank you.
You, sir, Mr. Foster.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Foster. Money, time, and effort where my mouth is. This is for Juan Diaz burial. I did a little fundraiser for him. I read that they needed money to help bury him. So will go to his family. I support the LAPD, but I have to call bad what it is when the LAPD is wrong. These people seem to like it when the police are harmed. I do not. But I just as much do not support bad, poor, criminal police conduct. I just don't support that. More on Juan Diaz, a foreign militia. We don't have to stick to tanks. We could just bomb any gang house with short-range missiles. We don't have to run a tank down there. And the gangs are an intrusion. The gang has also infected the ranks of the LAPD. They're here today, signed up as LAPD. And apparently you don't know. The LAPD didn't arrest the entire gang. It only arrested 3 individuals, when actually the entire gang is guilty, and you have not arrested the entire gang because you are corrupt, who are letting the illegal aliens stay here, rewarded as immigrants, or reworded as immigrants, which is a lie. They are a foreign militia. And you need to pass a law that says if one gang member does what the whole gang, then the whole gang did it. You see? It's shut down to deliver real justice on the behalf of Juan Diaz. However, who do the Native Americans call for justice? Did you shot them all out of here? Have you noticed that on Native American land, there was a United States police officer killed for someone who sprayed paint on a building, and yet the police officer, he doesn't own the building. He doesn't own the country. He didn't start it. He doesn't own it. He's not part of the 12 great-grandsons of the building, and yet he's dead for it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith? And
following Mr. Smith is Dr. Melina Abdullah, Paula Miner, and Jamie Garcia.
Excuse me, Mr. Foster, please have a seat, sir, or you need to leave. Thank you. Mr. Foster, Mr. Foster, Mr. Foster. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Please proceed.
Thank you, President Decker. Good morning, Chief. I do find it, obviously the most troubling thing being discussed so far is that there were 4 shootings by the LAPD. In terms of the procedure that you all like to adhere to in this room, like Steve twittering right now, it's pretty shameful that there were no commissioner questions to the chief. Like, maybe what happened where there were 4 shootings in 1 week? What happened where there were 2 people killed in 24 hours? What happened that another black houseless person with no shirt on ended up with 2 bullet holes in him? Like, those aren't questions. As a civilian oversight commission, those aren't questions worth asking. What does civilian oversight look like to you? Madam President, Mr. Bonner. It's just incredible. There's 4 incidents of shootings, and I'd like to know their names. Usually, at least Michael Moore says who they kill. So, Chief Arcos, I'd love you at least use their names. Validate their humanity in some fucking way. But it's pretty shameful that this board, civilian oversight, including Grandpa Twitter over there, can't fucking ask one goddamn question.
Dr. Melina Abdullah.
Dr. Abdullah.
So I just want to uplift and echo what Adam just said, that 4 shootings in a single week is incredible, it's shameful, it's outrageous, and it would seem that you all would say something, especially you. I'm going to call you out, Shane Goldsmith, who claimed to be about social justice. How can you not say anything? How can you not ask why? I know that you've seen I know Steve's seen what's on Twitter about John Penny. John Penny was armed with a bottle of soda, right? On private property, where the property owner employed LAPD to leave him alone. And they still shot him. It's miraculous that he was shot in the face and survived. And now you all continue to hold him and charge him with a crime? That's not a question you want to ask about Dale Bonner, right? We appreciate when you ask questions. Ask questions. This is a black man. This is a black man. You're the only one here who has any color. Can you please ask questions? It is not a crime to be black and houseless, or at least it's not supposed to be. So if this is a civilian oversight commission, then act on behalf of the civilians. Act on behalf of the people. Stop rubber stamping what police do. Stop rubber stamping how police kill our people. I want to also say it took 5 years to get a victory in New York. We ain't going nowhere. Until we get justice for our people, we're going to be here, and it's going to get a lot more rowdy, Eileen Decker, than it is right now. We demand justice. We're not just going to stand here and politely ask for it. You have a choice about what side you want to be on.
Ms. Minor, Ms. Paula Minor, and then Ms. Garcia.
In response to Chief Arco's report today, I too want to speak about John Penny. As you heard, John Penny was a black homeless man shot in Venice. He was on private property, a driveway where the landowner allowed him to be. When the police came, the landlord and other neighbors came out to explain why he was there, to explain that they knew him, to explain that he wasn't doing anything, that if he was having emotional issues, they could handle it. The police were aggressive with the landlord and the neighbors, like, get out of the way, get out of the way. Clear the area, they're saying, so we can shoot this black man. We don't care what you're talking about. We don't care, white people. We are here to protect you, and in order to protect you, we must be brutal and aggressive with a black homeless man, following the pattern of LAPD to disproportionately shoot black people, and also pointing out the fact that LAPD should not, has repeatedly been said over and over again, should not be attempting to handle social issues. If a person is homeless, if a person is having a mental crisis, the police, especially LAPD, are not the appropriate ones to try to resolve that. You know, luckily this man shot in the face survived. But we know that most of the black homeless people who are shot by LAPD do not survive. So I think it's important for this commission to start looking at these murders in a different light, not just counting them as a bunch of statistics that the chief or assistant chief reports on a weekly basis. These are people, and it's growing, it's increasing 4 in 1 week. LA continues to be the most murderous law enforcement area in the nation. You know, we talk about New York and all these other cities. It's here.
Thank you, Ms.
It's
Mender.
part of your responsibility.
Ms. Garcia.
Jamie Garcia, followed by Audrey George, Carrie Ungerman, and Zach Sherwin.
So this is what we mean when we say before the bullet hits the body. This is what we mean when we come here and we say that John Perry is a person who has parents, who has neighbors, has people that wanted to protect him, people that stood to protect him from the LAPD. So, you know, as many people are saying that you have no business engaging with our communities, even if there may be distress, even if there may be conflict. No amount of de-escalation training, mental health training, community policing changes what policing is. It is violent intervention in our communities. It is to contain, to control, to criminalize, or to kill. That is all that policing is, and it's been that for many decades, even with this push for community policing. So, you know, let's talk about police. They partner with private enterprise. They partner with city officials to criminalize poverty and to criminalize the black community. Let's be clear. This is about land, and this is about displacement from land. Programs like PredPol, Anchor Points, Precision Policing only encourage the targeting of our communities. Then they now are trying to bring in our neighbors to not only encourage the racism that we find in white communities, but to turn neighbors against neighbors, to be informants, to be infiltrates, to believe that you are the only people we need to intervene. That is not true. That is a lie. There are so many people that go to school, that spend their lives wanting to engage with communities without guns, without beanbags, without violence. And we do not have that opportunity because you continually are in recession-proof budget, taking every last resource that we have. This has to end. This has to stop. You have to do something about it. You have to finally come to the conclusion and realize violence is not what we want. Violence.
Ma'am, you can come back at general public comment, ma'am. Ma'am, your time is up, please. There are other speakers waiting for the opportunity to speak. Come on. Ms. George.
You know, all you have to do is say the word and we'll stop the clock and pause for a minute so that you can all go and take a minute to wash the fucking blood off your hands. Not just Arcos, but every one of you commissioners. It doesn't seem to me like it's only Steve Soboroff who feels that he is part of the LAPD. Why was John Penny shot so close to where Brendan Glenn was shot? Why was he shot? It's because there's a culture in LAPD, a violent, racist culture. And they're inciting that culture based on fear in the public. They're inciting a hate culture nurtured by the LAPD to other and criminalize black people, homeless people. This is being done through programs like this volunteer program, using Ring, creating a false narrative of what public safety is by people narking on each other, not trusting each other, using counterinsurgency methods. This is what we tell Steve Soboroff over and over, that I, as a Jewish person, just so decry that we're creating a culture like there was in Germany, where nobody could trust anybody. LAPD must acknowledge they were wrong to shoot these people, including John Penny. They must apologize. They must address the harm that they caused for John and the others through reparations, such as making sure they drop the charges, name the cops, fire the cops, prosecute the cops, give him and any other living victims the best medical care available.
Thank you, Ms. George.
Morning. The other day, I was horrified to read a post that a friend of a friend posted that said, "Oh my God, there's a man that was just shot in my driveway." And I continued to read on, and that's who we've been talking about this morning. And I thought about, okay, this homeless man this black homeless man was allowed to be in someone's driveway. A neighbor was trying to help that person, and I thought, you know what? That probably would happen in my neighborhood in Studio City. Mostly white people. What if I invited one of the people I knew that live on the street, most in my neighborhood, a lot of them with mental health issues, invited them to sleep in my driveway, and I wasn't out there, and my neighbors saw someone just in my driveway? Would they call the police? I think they probably would. I live in a neighborhood where people want more police, not less police, and I think there are several reasons for that. The other thing I thought of and I was happy to hear, or relieved to hear, that he hadn't died, is I thought back to a conversation I had with an off-duty police person of color. And this person told me a few things. I said, somehow we were able to get in this conversation, and I said, why do y'all always shoot to kill? Why not shoot in the knee, or not knee? Why not shoot in the thigh or somewhere else if you're going to do it? Why do you have to kill the people you kill? And he told me, he's off-duty, an officer now in this city. He told me, we kill because if they're left alive, that'll cause problems. And I thought, oh, and that's interesting. This person has been charged with 3 felonies. A homeless, unarmed person who was, doing what he was given permission to do.
Zach Sherwin, followed by Gina Viola, Hamid Khan, Peggy Lee Kennedy.
Sir.
Yep. I'm struck this morning by the use of what I consider to be an evil and bureaucratic euphemism, which is officer-involved shooting. In the case of John Penny, the entirety of the shooting was directly attributable to the officer. So it wasn't a shooting in which an officer was involved in any but the most technical sense. And it doesn't strike me as an accurate description of what happened here. The facts in the issue that speaker after speaker are talking to are so egregious that it shocks the conscience. It's hard to wrap one's mind around. I always am struck by the cognitive dissonance that goes on in this room, and that we're talking about these things that actually happen to people in these cold and clinical terms, and the lack of human response. Literally, as I say these words, Steve Soboroff is looking at what? His phone? A document? It's hard to say. How shameful that I have to call you by name to get you to make eye contact with me. Look at this board. You know, I despair at the thought that this is the point of access that we have to try and express some of the things that an incident like this brings up for people in this community, and that this is what we have to resort to. Sandra hasn't been here in weeks. Steve has either been checked out looking at his phone or staring stonily out into the crowd during the entirety of these comments. I've been keeping an eye on it, and I have some photos if anybody wants. you know, the fact that this is where we have to go, it's so dispiriting. I'm encouraged by the comments of this community and the fact that people are willing to take time to come speak at this podium in this grim, awful environment and try and get some accountability for what happened. 4 shootings, come on. You're the board of this commission. You're supposed to oversee. You're supposed to provide guidance. If you let this go, are you smiling at me? Wow. Wow. This is 2 weeks in a row, people who weren't here last week, that Steve has engaged in a staring contest with me. I don't know what it's about, but shame on you. It's disgusting.
Ms. Viola?
4 officer-involved shootings in 1 week, and not a single question. I know you've been asked about that already, but I'd like to go on record with that as well. And I'll tell you why. Because you do nothing. You, the chief, does nothing. This commission finally finds Ryan Lee and Martin Robles out of policy when they murder Grishario Mack, and the chief has done nothing about it. Nothing about it. And the fact that you all do nothing about all the other officer-involved shootings is why we're here. It's why we had 4 this week. You don't care, so LAPD gets free rein to do whatever it wants. You are not oversight. You are not oversight in any way, shape, or form. I have said this for the last several years. Stop calling it officer-involved shootings. You are purposely misleading the public into thinking officers are being shot. That's why you phrase it that way. Officer shoots civilian. That is what it needs to be called, because that is what it is. That's what it needs to be called. Stop misleading the public with your Josh videos and with your terminology of officer-involved shootings. I've asked for that time and time again. I demand that you release the names of the officers who shot John Penny and drop all charges against him immediately. I demand that you fire Ryan Lee and Martin Robles for murdering Grishario Mack naked in the shower. Another reason we're here is because of your predictive policing. You as the commission can get rid of that. Dismantle predictive policing and predpol technology now, so that our community stops being harmed by this. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Khan?
Clock is already, okay, cool. So every time we hear a report from these folks, and even the language that Arcos was using, we also have to look at it through our own understanding that what they're speaking about is that how race, poverty, and suspect bodies are policed. And police being the tip of the knife of the white gaze, the white supremacist gaze, that how white supremacy looks at the world. How white supremacy measures a suspect body. What is the value of a black body to be sleeping outside when the owner of the property has given permission and recognized that this body needs to rest? This body needs some peace in this extremely violent white supremacist system. So the language of suspect this and suspect that and suspect this and suspect that is very much rooted in how policing of race and poverty has always happened. And policing of that body is always there with the intent to cause harm. There's no healing in that. There's no thriving in that. It is with the intent to cause harm. And not for a second they will speak about that, was there a relationship to see something, say something. Mark Smith's report earlier in June by itself exposed that 84% of these files are being called by community informants. And out of those, overwhelming majority are from the West Bureau, the Valley Bureau. So how these programs are being weaponized, how they are licensed to racially profile, how they provide more fodder for people to be murdered publicly like this. Predpol, creating these hotspots, walking into a high-threat area, because even when the neighbors intervened, they had already considered that, no, this is a predpol, this is a hotspot, this is a high-threat area. Fuck you guys, we are here to do what we will do. We will claim this body. So that is what Jamie Garcia was saying before the bullet hits the body. We have to look at it through that lens.
The next speaker is Peggy Lee Kennedy, followed by Adam Rice. And we have 3 additional cards, madam.
I'll take the three.
Hi.
One moment, please. Who are the three final?
The three are Michael Williams, Jed Perriott, and Dee Parker.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Peggy Lee Kennedy from the Venice Justice Committee. We help run a free legal clinic for unhoused people in Venice monthly. And we've been doing it for years. We don't get funding and we're not paid. And we also monitor what's going on, police activity with the unhoused community in our area. Our outreach coordinator is friends with John Penny. We know John Penny. We didn't know his name until after he was shot. We know him by his nickname because he's one of our people. And it's really it's so upsetting that you wouldn't even question what happened to him. I'm sitting there listening, and you guys are just sitting here while this poor man was brutalized in a space he had permission to be in. Now, I just want you to know a little bit about Mr. Penny. He's 5'11", and he maybe weighs 140 pounds. The guy is slight. He's not big. He's not a threat to me. I'm 5 foot tall. I never felt that he was a threat in any way. I don't care what's, condition he's in. So why do 10 armed officers feel the need to shoot him? I don't care if he's holding a Coke bottle. I'm around unhoused people a lot, and I've never had to shoot one of them, ever. I never had to defend myself against them. I never had to call the police on them. And I really, really question why this has to be what you guys are sitting here just passively letting go by. I am a community member in Venice, and I demand answers.
Mr. Rice.
Yet again, we get another report from the agency that uses the most city money that is complete and absolute incompetent bullshit. John Penny was not a suspect. John Penny was attacked. John Penny was a victim of police terrorism. Terrorism is defined as the use of force or violence to influence the public discourse or action. That is what happened to John Penny. When the person who let him stay there came out and tried to calmly explain to the officers, I let him stay here, man. Just leave him alone. Move, sir. Get the fuck out of the way, sir. Because he had a Coke bottle in his hand? Do you train your officers? I mean, did they go down in a pillow fight? Are your officers completely incompetent? I'm asking, Chief. I mean, some of the officers in this room look decently fit. They can't handle a 5 foot some odd man that weighs about 100 pounds with a Coke bottle. They have to shoot him? Do they, sir? You can go ahead and answer, man. I'll see my time. Do they need to shoot him? And you're blinking and you're looking at me because you're making excuses for your useless terrorists. This board is an excuse for terrorism. Billions of dollars that could be invested in creating real public safety like housing, jobs,
Thank you, sir.
are wasted on your terrorists.
Michael Williams.
Thank you.
The last time I was here, we were actually coming out of a victory, and the last thing I said was to the chief, I said, it's on you now, right? You got to fire the officers that killed Goshario. And I looked at y'all and I said, if he doesn't, you need to fire him. And of course, he doesn't, yet he's not fired. There's no procedure to get him fired. And now we're back here for John Penny. We're back here for another person who got killed, or almost got killed. Should have been killed, to be honest. It was a miracle. God bless that man, because it was a miracle that he survived that. It wasn't on y'all part trying to save his life. That's only God. And the interesting thing is now that I see you all as a force that just doesn't do anything, that will make little concessions to make us feel good, and then you won't actually do the necessary steps and put the necessary procedures in to actually enforce those changes that you say you made. When you don't do that, you're just enabling our movement. I'm an abolitionist. I believe police is a old and outdated system within our society. It has never been for people, and now it's even gotten to a worse point where it doesn't even work for white people anymore. They just released a poll that said white young men are getting killed at a huge rate by the police. 6th leading cause among young men in this country. So it doesn't even work for y'all. Today on the train when I was riding here, I saw an older gentleman reading a book called The End of Policing. And he wasn't coming here. That means more people are starting to think about this abolition. More people are starting to think about why we have these things when people are getting killed. And you know what? We have you to thank for it, because your inaction continues to lead to people's belief.
Thank you,
of
Mr.
this.
Williams.
Jed Perriott, followed by Dee Parker and Kath Rogers.
I agree with what Michael just said, and off of that, my name is Jed Perriott. I'm with the Services Not Sweeps Coalition, which is a coalition of 40 organizations and service providers. One of our core demands is the immediate removal of LAPD from any type of engagement or outreach to the unhoused community. We demand the immediate removal of LAPD from being first responders to poverty and houselessness. And yet again, here we have another reason why that demand is being echoed all across the city. More and more people, as Michael just mentioned, are echoing that demand. Once again, another example of why LAPD should be immediately disarmed, why LAPD should be defunded, why we need more healthcare providers, more service providers, more teachers. I ask everyone in this room wearing a uniform, please take off your badges and guns, take off your uniform, go become a medical technician, go become a teacher, a firefighter. Policing is absolutely outdated, and here we are, we're allowing a property owner to call you because of their quality of life. Someone was screaming, and they had to call you. Why couldn't they just go maybe talk to the man? That's why I tell people, actually, that when I do engage with the housed community, I tell them, if you have an issue, if you're concerned because you hear someone yelling, don't call the police, please. They could get killed if you call the police. Call us. Call the people who actually know how to engage with people experiencing poverty, the systemic poverty, the racist poverty, of which policing and LAPD is a racist institution that upholds. That's all this is. That's all this is. And once again, you are all here enabling the ever-increasing fascist movement that's growing across the city, enabled by Donald Trump. That's happening right here in the West Valley, in Venice, in Hollywood, and your blood is on your hands.
Dee Parker, please.
Good morning. As I sit here, I get an energy from Steve that is just so evil. And it's really unreal that you're even here. It seems like you're not real, really. I can't feel anything. And then amongst everyone else, it's just kind of like you're under that, like it's sucking you up like cancer. It spreads. And you, sir, I don't know how your life is right now, but if you believe in anything, you should really start changing the way you see things because you have family. And although we're here for people that you may not know, you never know what might happen in life. And that's just the truth of life. You never know where you may find yourself. You never know. All these people are here because they found themselves in places we don't want to be here. We're not here because we like to be here. We're here because we have to be here. I live in a neighborhood that doesn't make you comfortable to think about what could happen to you. That doesn't make you comfortable. You're looking around at what? What? That doesn't make you comfortable. We have to think about that all the time. I live in a neighborhood where the police come and they hang out in the gas station. They harass the people who work in the gas station, and they say they have the right to do that. No, that's loitering. I could go to jail for that. We didn't ask you to come here. So what's going on? Then I asked the police officer, is this laser? She says, well, we don't call it that anymore. Okay, so you still do it. What do you call it then? What do you call it? We're not going to sit down. We're not going to be quiet. We're not going to be afraid because our lives matter. We matter just like you think you matter.
Kath Rogers.
Hi, my name is Kath Rogers. I'm with the National Lawyers Guild Los Angeles, and we are here to decry the police shooting of John Penny. NLG received calls from John Penny's neighbors who were terrified when they heard 3 gunshots. They didn't want police there. John had permission from his friend who owned the property he was on. The property owner told police that their presence would not be helpful there. He told police their presence was not wanted there, and yet police told his friend, who could have de-escalated the situation, to get back in the house. They would deal with it. Allegedly, they were there for a noise complaint. The police had no reason to be there in the first place. Their presence did more harm than good. It showed a complete lack of de-escalation. The video that I've seen has 10 officers and a shirtless man who's been shot twice. There was a complete lack of disregard for this man's life, even when the property owner told police to leave. Instead of words, the officers used bullets. They tased John. They shot him with a beanbag. Why was there a gun out? Why was there a taser? Why was there a beanbag bullet? With no questions asked by this commission, we need to ask the tough questions. Would John have been shot if he was white? Would John have been shot if he had a home? Those are the questions this commission needs to ask. And as we move forward, LAPD is going to be trying to justify their actions with criminal prosecution of John. And we need to ask this commission to ask the tough questions and protect John. He needs top-notch medical care. He's been shot. So this commission needs to do its job. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to public comment. Do we have public comment cards?
We have 18 public comment cards. The first 4, Mr. Herman, Wayne from Encino, Jeffrey Delshad, Jonathan Foster. Mr. Herman and Wayne are not here. Peggy Lee Kennedy and Kai Utsumi.
Still on Juan Diaz and Jonathan Foster. I wanted to point out some other illegal aliens. Hold on, guys. There was a white supremacist shooter, and the white supremacist shooter, he's a murderer. And he's an illegal alien. He might have been white and born here, but look what he did. I mean, that's as alien as it gets, doesn't it? He's white. There was a black man that shot his grandmother, and then he got on a police chase, and the cops got out, shot the guy in the shoulder, but then they killed a Trader Joe's employee. But to me, the black guy is an illegal alien. He shot his grandmother. I mean, that's alien to me. Might not be to you. And the last time I talked to a lot of black people, I have a jazz degree. I've been playing drums all my life, born a day Jimi Hendrix. And what they tell me is they love their grandmothers. They love their families. But here, this guy, he shot his grandmother. And it's a little hard for me. The Las Vegas shooter is a white guy. He's also an illegal alien. What's he doing here in a building shooting people? It's like alien to me. Police, right here. Police shooting unarmed persons. Do you know that that's illegal alien? It's alien to the United States of America to have a police officer shooting unarmed people. That's alien. Gang drive-by shootings, illegal alien. LAPD raped a girl. That's alien. That's right. USA shooting Native Americans. The USA is an illegal alien. It hasn't administered a civil right to a Native American, has it? Adjusted to inflation income is $88, what the Congress makes, but no female congressperson is giving any female $88 minimum wage.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we accidentally skipped you, sir. Why don't you come ahead and give your comments?
Okay, thank you. Continuing with violence against women, I've also taken a little bit, this mic is weird, taken a little bit of an interest in the woman by the name of Ronnie Chasen, who was a kind of a big Hollywood thing in 2010. You may remember. She was killed in a black Mercedes on Whittier, which is in Beverly Hills, about a block away from LA. She was driving to her home in LA on Wilshire. What do you call it? The Millionaire's Mile or whatever. And no one seems to believe the Beverly Hills Police Department investigated and found the person that killed her. They found a black guy who committed suicide, and he apparently was the one who killed her, but they said that there's no evidence that directly connects him with that issue. So it seems people are still wondering. I don't really know what happened to her, but it seems like closure when people are killed is kind of like your business. So if you're doing kind of like a changing of the guard thing regarding Chief Beck, and now we got a new chief, hopefully, I guess one would be hoping for some improvements and changes and things. I just thought maybe I could lift up that name, and someone could take a look at that or something. It's about a block away from LA, so yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you for hearing my public comment. Peggy Lee Kennedy, Venice Justice Committee. Look, I was part of a group. We monitor the sanitation sweeps in Venice regularly, and we're in coalition with Services Not Sweeps. And why are there all these police there? It's insane. And they say they're not in charge, but they really are. They're standing there with their hands on their guns over these crying homeless people who have minutes to put their stuff in a garbage bag, and then the rest is thrown away under the color of law. And I have a serious problem with that. It's torture of these people who happen to live outside. And many of them know it was not their own doing. They're just there trying to find housing. They're giving their information for that list, federal list to get housing. LAFA's coming up and handing their cards and not giving them housing. I mean, it's a crime what's going on. And it does not take police, it takes real services. And the police need to come out of that. So I'm down there last Friday watching the sanitation sweep, and afterwards I was looking for a lost shoe of a child, and there was a woman that had a psychiatric issue. Well, who responded? The LAPD. Not one, not two, but, a whole group of them. And I said, we need to call a psychiatric team to evaluate her immediately. And the cop said, we don't do that. And I said, well, they said, you should. I should. I'm not paid. I would, but I don't think they're going to come for me. Could you? And so I'm telling you, we need real help, not LAPD escalating it all the time.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I have the next three names?
The next three names, Kayu Tsumi, Jamie Garcia, Audrey George, and Carrie Ungerman. 4.
Predictive policing, LAPD's predictive policing and predpo technology is pseudoscience filled with the same old institutional racism against black and brown poor communities and occupying the poor communities, the South Central, Boyle Heights, etc., etc. It's in accord with Trump's white supremacist racism and make America white again. Public comment should be the first item of this commission, not the last. Too much time is spent at these meetings of police talking to police. This unelected commission is really a part of LAPD rather than an oversight. The past years, many murders of unarmed young black and brown youth that goes unanswered. And these public comments, without these public comments that this commission ignores, you have no democracy. You have a police state that grows into a fascist police state. That's how Nazi Germany happened. It grew into fascist police state because they did not listen to public comment. Public comment should be the first item on this agenda, not the last. Who runs this police commission? Who runs the police chief? Who runs this LAPD? Somebody runs the police. Somebody runs this commission. It's not elected. It's not the people. It's not democracy.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Garcia.
So I want to go back to my other point, and I kind of want to spend this time letting folks know that next Tuesday, the 27th, we're going to be hearing back from the commission about the OIG audit, about PredPol, about the aftermath of Operation Laser. Hopefully, this commission is concerned about the aftermath of Operation Laser, what kind of impact it had on the community. But I wanted to kind of talk again about this whole land and displacement, because this is really what is going on. You know, through police violence, through your partnership with private enterprise, through your partnership with the city, you are attempting to move people either through murder, through force, through incarceration, out of their communities. That is what's happening. And so one thing that they haven't been talking about are anchor points, which they are now renaming to crime generators, crime something else, right? Because you don't want to call it an anchor point, because you don't want to claim that it's dragging the community down as if that's the fucking problem. So with these anchor points, they actually have red boxes over houses as the target of where they're going for. So now we're not only using militarized equipment, we're actually using maps that, you know, mark the target. And I have them in my possession, but that's not what my whole comment is about. My comment is about how secretive these programs are, because since November of 2018, when we filed public records request 18-3148, we asked for the policy and procedure and how these are decided. And it's been almost a year and you still can't produce it. you still can't produce it. So which leads me to believe that this is the same bullshit as the chronic offender bulletins. You are arbitrarily deciding what areas you want to target and what areas you want to over control. So let's think about it. Eileen, Bonner, Shane Goldsmith, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to ask questions about anchor points? Or are you going to sit there again and have nothing to say?
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Ms. George?
I feel like I'm going to be sort of all over the place because it's been a long time. I've been holding a lot of things for public comment that I haven't gotten to say. And first of all, I just want to say that you made a big mistake in electing Eileen Decker to be the president. You should have just put Chief Moore in that role. I mean, after all, Chief Moore rules the PC. Chief Moore is known to say publicly that even though Grishario Mack's murder was considered out of policy, he feels no compunction at all about leaving Ryan, Lee, and Robles on the force. He feels not compelled at all to fire them. I wear this visitor badge, and I feel like it should always say unwelcome visitor. Do we have any allies, anyone on this commission who cares about the public? I'm reminding you about the request over and over years to change the time and location of this meeting so that more folks in the community can actually show up, especially it's in competition with police, with the Board of Supervisors in City Hall and City Council, and sometimes with the Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission. We demand they be moved into the community permanently. We demand that there be no time limit for families of those killed by LAPD when they give comment. We demand that during LAPD presentations, you stop using subject matter experts who are not experts, who are incentivized to give you certain opinions. We have subject matter experts for you. For instance, Black Lives Matter LA and Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. And LA Can, when matters of homelessness and poverty and police brutality are up on the agenda or just for discussion or should be discussed.
Thank you, Ms. George.
And following Carrie Ungerman are Zach Sherwin, Gina Viola, and Chanel Pittman.
I wanted to go back to that off-duty police person that I spoke with. He also went on to tell me, if I was wearing a wife beater, which is a kind of a despicable term for a tank top, and I was in my car, I would just look like a gangbanger. But I wouldn't have any, I'm not worried because they'd run my license plate through and see I'm a cop. And then I was thinking, but we didn't have time to continue, well, what if you weren't in that car? What if you're just walking? What if any of your colleagues who aren't in uniform are just walking or doing other things that folks do every day? What kind of protection would you have? So switching a moment, last Tuesday I was at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and it was pretty great. And both Hilda Solis and Sheila Kuehl spoke, and they were really great. And when Sheila Kuehl spoke, what she said was amazing and historic, and unfortunately none of y'all could be there, and none of the city council members could be there because all three meetings were at the same time. But it was something very important that every person should hear, because it talked about how prisons aren't working, and it's all connected, and that's what we've been saying. This commission, certain decisions on city council, certain decisions in the DA office, it's all related, and it's all related to everything that everyone else has been talking about this morning.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Sherman?
It's really interesting that Audrey, one of the previous speakers, brought up the visitor badge, because I was also thinking about the word visitor and what an inaccurate term it is for how I feel about the experience of coming here to these meetings. It's almost like it should be in quotes, because a visit is like a pleasant thing that you undertake, and coming to these is dispiriting, but as the previous speaker said, it feels like something that has to happen. I was also thinking about how we put things in quotes when we mean that that's not actually what we mean. You know, we're saying a word, but we put it in quotes. And I'm looking at the words in quotes around this room: to protect and to serve. All the words over on this wall: integrity in all we say and do, quote unquote. And I feel like the actions of this police department belie the fact that those aren't actually principles that seem to be embodied by their actions. And, you know, I noticed that Los Angeles Police Department, under your name, Commissioners, isn't up there in quotes on the wall. And that's because I agree with the sentiment that people have expressed, which is that you do seem to be in thrall to what the police department wants you to do. I mean, Soboroff's a lost cause. I'm speaking to the three of you now, not him. He's, you know, we found interviews with him where he says that he's biased towards the police department, which just makes me have this reaction. I shake my head in disbelief that that information is out there and readily available, but it is. Have these meetings at a different time. It can't be said often enough. Have it in a more accessible place. We waited for weeks for election of new officers because Sandra wasn't here, and she still isn't here this week, and it happened. It's a new leadership regime. I hope we see some of these changes, though I don't expect it. And I'm going to close by just repeating the demands. Drop the charges against John Penny, release the names of the officers and fire them, and take care of his medical expenses. Make them do that. Use your power to make them do it.
Ms. Viola?
I too want to speak to the election of officers because, you know, all you have to do is come into this room a few weeks in a row and uncover lies that were told from this commission. We were put off for weeks because you said you needed a full commission to do that election. You still don't have a full commission. And granted, what you're missing is who I call the silent one.
Mr. Tiefenk, will you say
Doesn't
why
have any-
Commissioner...
I love it when Mr.
We'll give you more time. Why Commissioner Figueroa Villa is not here today, please, sir?
That's not my point.
My point.
Oh,
You'll
it's
have
your
more
point.
time.
It's all right, Mr. Tiefenk. If Ms. Figueroa Villa has allowed us to state why she's absent, please advise.
Ms. Figueroa.
Again, it is not the point of why she's absent.
I understand, Ms. Viola.
It's
but
the credibility I'm speaking to.
I understand, but why don't we just allow this to happen, please? Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Figueroa is not here this morning because she's having a medical procedure done and not able to be here.
Thank you.
Then you should postpone like you did the past 2 weeks. You claimed you needed her present to do that election. So you were lying. You're either lying then or you're lying now. My point is, all I have to do is be here 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and I'm told lies. And I can hear those lies because they come out in subsequent weeks. That's what I'm talking about. You want to speak to decorum in this room? You're not going to get any decorum in this room because you don't have any decorum in the way you supposedly govern. You don't govern at all. You don't oversee. You don't do any of it. You rubber stamp the police. And that was made painfully obvious today when you heard the chief tell you about 4 officer-involved shootings and you didn't have a single question about one of them. They didn't even blink. Not even a single. You didn't blink. Didn't move you in the least. You're catching up. Your numbers were slow at the beginning of the year. I was thinking that 1421 was actually having some effect. But since you're not even honoring the 1421 requests, it doesn't matter what we do. We can go to Sacramento. We can get legislation passed. We can sit in here week after week. I haven't heard one comment in here from a community member saying they were on board with what you did with John Penny. Not one. I haven't heard any community member saying they're on board with anything. Well, of course. Yeah, he'll make a music video of it. He'll make a music video of John Penny, and we can all laugh about that, but that is tragic. And it is tragic that you oversee that, and you continue to rubber stamp it. And let me tell you, the police will run wild in this city until you all start to do your jobs. But since you've been under Steve Soboroff's direction, I have no hope that you will ever do anything different.
Thank you.
No
Our
hope.
Next 3 speakers, please.
Chanel Putman. And then we have the next 3, Hamid Khan, Dr. Melina Abdullah, and Kath Rogers.
I have a point of order comment. I believe that it's a Brown Act, maybe a Brown Act violation to interrupt a public comment like that.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker, please. Ms. Putnam. Ma'am, would it be easier for you to sit down?
No, I'm just in the middle of a panic attack. I need 5 seconds and I'll be good.
Okay.
Please take distance, please. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so thank you for the 5 seconds I asked for calm. I'm very confused and concerned. Again, my name is Chanel Pittman, Pittman, not Puttman as it was pronounced. I'm concerned about the fact that someone was shot in the face and you didn't think that merited a comment. I mean, that's concerning to me in a very deep and personal way. I mean, you guys are the police commission. It is your job to oversee police officers. If you can't do that because you're police officers, this should be a civilian commission, not people loyal to the concept of police being always correct. And I hear a lot of speaking of officer-involved shooting. No, police-initiated shooting should not be okay. You guys, come on, this is ridiculous. I mean, the reason I have these panic issues in this room is because your homies, the sheriff's department, decided, acting upon a worry of someone's mental health, to show up at my door 5 years ago, officers who refused to identify themselves and essentially forced their way into my home as I asked for their identity, which they never gave me. A completely single, disabled, black Muslim woman. I asked them to identify themselves, and these sheriffs chose not to do that. I told them, they said to me, okay, can you open your screen door so we can see that you're safe? Because we have reason to believe you're not. I say, I'm opening my screen door, but I'm not letting you in because I know my rights and you have no right to be here. They chose to put their hands on me, slam my wrist onto the grounds, which caused a terrible sprain, which is the reason I'm not in school right now. And I ended up with my arms tied behind my back with some kind of belt and handcuffs and my knees tied together. This is the sort of things that happen when police officers are the ones to respond to mental health crises. This cannot be allowed to happen anywhere, and what happened to Mr. Petty was wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ahmed Khan, please.
Mr. Khan and then Dr. Abdullah. While Mr. Khan walks up to the podium, I will add in response to some public comment questions procedurally that the commission doesn't ask questions when the chief first reports because we are the adjudicators and we get the reports as a result of the investigations. Thank you, sir. Mr. Khan. Mr. Smith, if you continue to interrupt the meeting, I'll have to ask you to leave. Mr. Khan?
So, make sure folks are here next Tuesday because, as Jamie Garcia said, the LAPD is supposed to bring back their official response to the OIG audit and particularly about Predpol. And last time in April, you saw how the academia was speaking out against Predpol. We had 28 faculty members, 40 graduate students signed a letter. We found out last Friday that now there's almost 400 academics that have signed on to the letter. Faculty members, distinguished professors of anthropology, of law, from MIT, from Harvard, from NYU, from USC, from Claremont Colleges, from Cal State LA, from Long Beach, you name it. There's a whole movement that is taking place within the academic circles against this junk science and pseudoscience. And we're still baffled by what is going on that you're still hanging on to it. What is the real story behind it? Like, who is responsible? And we will find out, I'm sure, like, as everything does, because we are after you. We're coming after you. We're going to expose everything that you're doing, all the toxicity, all the insidiousness, everything, all the backdoor negotiations. Mark Smith is not going to do it because he does a procedural audit. So the question is that with this in mind, with the academics speaking out, with the public speaking out, with people being murdered, with people being targeted, people being assassinated, why do you still continue with these practices? And when people talk about that the blood is on your hand, it literally is. Because you are the ones who are enabled. You are constantly blessing this thing. You are blessing these things under the guise of the custodians of public trust, which almost makes us complicit as well. And it's a hideous thing to even think of. that you, as a civilian oversight body, talking to the civilian, blessing all of this thing, rubber stamping this thing, what do the civilians do? So you've got to dismantle this shit. This department has to be abolished.
Thank you,
eventually.
sir.
Policing has
Mr. Khan.
And this is what needs to happen.
Thank you, sir. We have other speakers, Mr. Khan. Thank you. Mr. Khan. Dr. Abdullah, you're next, and who are the next few speakers?
We have Kath Rogers, Jeremy White, Michael Williams, and Dee Parker.
Thank you.
Can I have my time back, please? So we know, based on study, that there are only two things that reduce the number of people who are killed or abused by police, the number of things that reduce the number of black people that are killed or abused by police. One, less interaction with police, and two, police being held accountable. You should know that too, because this is your job. This is why you're on this commission. And so what are you doing to ensure less interaction between black people and police? That means we don't need police on every corner, every bar stool, every church pew, as Michael Moore talks about, right? That's the exact opposite of what we should be doing. And two, what are you doing to hold them accountable? A couple of months ago, you did something that was important and that was striking to us, which is you found the officers who murdered Grishario Mack out of policy, unanimously. You voted that Martin Robles and Ryan Lee were out of policy in the murder of Grishario Mack. Just as a refresher, Grishario was killed inside Crenshaw Baldwin Hills Mall. They didn't even bother to evacuate the mall before killing him. After they shot him and he was down on the ground, they stood over him to make sure that he was dead, firing 2 more shots. You said that was out of policy. Michael Moore has been going around this city telling people that they will not be fired or disciplined. So you need to come back and say, what's the purpose of this commission in the first place? We have a petition that we're going to ask you to sign right now. Go to tinyurl.com/Grishario and say that those officers need to be fired. Michael Moore shouldn't be able to run a terrorist police state. That's what he's doing. That's what the sheriff is doing. And that's what you're supposed to be stopping, not just sitting here and imposing rules.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. Thank you, ma'am.
Kath Rogers. Kath Rogers, not here. Jeremy White, Michael Williams, and Dee Parker. And I do have 3 additional cards, ma'am.
So last Wednesday, I received a call around 7 p.m. from a witness to the shooting of John Penny. His voice was shaking as he recounted the details about this egregious act. John was harmless, unarmed, other than a soda, living on that property with permission of the property owner, the same property owner that beseeched LAPD not to harm him. Regardless of all this, Mr. Penny was shot twice, once with a less lethal beanbag and again with an all-too-lethal bullet. Miraculously, he survived this encounter with LA's murder squad. It sounds like you wanted to kill John, but you failed at that, so now you're trying to put him away for life with 3 trumped-up felony charges. Trumped, what a fitting term. In a time when an open white supremacist sits in the White House and white terrorists carry out mass shootings on a weekly basis, you pat yourselves on the backs here in progressive Los Angeles, quoting minor reductions in crime, thinking your practices are anything but a direct continuance of that self-same white supremacy. You are no different, just more of the same. Guardians of a racist, murderous police force whose roots reside with runaway slave catchers, lynchers, and takers of black lives. You should all resign in shame and curtail your disgusting legacy of corruption and ineptitude. But we all know you lack the intestinal and moral fortitude to do what's right. So we'll continue to show up to shame you and inform the public of what goes on in this room. You need to release the names of the officers who shot John. You need to cover his medical expenses, like Zach said. And you need to hold the police accountable for these actions and stop criminalizing and murdering people for being black and houseless and in mental health crises. Or what are you even doing here? What is the point of your existence? Do you all want to just be as useless and ineffective as this fool Soboroff? Because that's how you look. You have a chance to do better now. You have a chance to change the narrative. Do something with your time on this planet.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Williams?
Back in the times of slavery, there was a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin that was the first real look into what was going on in slavery. It wasn't a very real or authentic look, but it was the first look most white people had at the brutality that people were experiencing during slavery. Martin Luther King, one of his tactics when he was doing his work with the civil rights movement, one of the tactics that the civil rights movement used was to use the brutality of the segregationists against them to end segregation. They continued to march and they continued to move forward. And people like Steve Soboroff, Bull Connor, and the president at the time, Lyndon B. Johnson, wanted to be harsh on the civil rights movement to try to break them. But it was actually reversed, because once people saw the brutality that was happening in the South for people who were just fighting for basic rights, people started to swing the other side. So the same things that y'all are doing right now, which is being hard tactic, it's not letting people finish, Steve Soboroff looking at his phone, all these things are helping us to win. The sad thing is that we want you all to do the right thing, because we don't want to have more John Pennies to die before this thing is over. But the sad thing is, because you guys refuse and absolutely have avarice for us being here, these things will continue. But it's only helping our cause. Because the more you defy what is trying to be done, the less changes that you implement, the more you allow Chief Moore to continue to allow officers who have murdered, that you saved, murdered a person, to go walk free, the more people are going to realize that this thing is obsolete, just like they did with slavery, just like they did with segregation. So you are continue to do it. If you really wanted to fuck us over, you would just approve most of the stuff we talk about. That would help. We would have nothing to complain about every week. But because you have so much avarice, and because of your privilege, and because of who you are, you will not do that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Parker? And
Then we have 5 cards after this. We have Mr. Herman, Deep Singh, Adam Rice, Dan, and Corey Schmidt.
Ms. Parker, you're next, ma'am.
Parker, D. Parker.
Thank you. Mr. Herman's after you.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to go back to the idea, like Professor Abdullah was saying, we don't need the police in our community. That is quite opposite of what we need. When there's no police, like where I live, I've lived there for 7 years, and I'm reluctant to say where that is because some of these officers I've seen in my community. And I've never heard any gunshots where I live. I've never seen any violence where I live. I feel completely safe until I see a black and white car driving past. That's when I'm worried. That's when I'm scared. I don't even drive here because I'm afraid of driving here. So we don't need the police. The police do not help at all. They are really do the opposite. Back to the liquor store. It's not a liquor store. It's a gas station by my house. And the police come there on routine, like clockwork. And the gentleman said that the police harassed him, asked him if he had an attitude, and that's where he works. You're coming into his place of work. Would you like me to come up to you and ask you if you have an attitude? I mean, no, right? You guys sit up here with attitudes blatantly, and we can't do nothing about it. So the audacity to come to someone's place of business and ask them, do they have an attitude, and then threaten them at their job. You could go into the streets and really do something, really do something, but you're creating the trouble. There's no trouble. When we call the police, they don't come. They don't come. They come when they want to, and they create the problem. And then they call it a police-involved shooting.
Don't shoot, don't shoot. What happened at that mall? What happened to that young black individual when you shot him cold blood at that mall? What's going on, Shane? People have a crisis, and you send out a force of individuals who can't control their trigger finger. And how do I represent that? It's fucked up. And that's the one issue about de-escalation, is that everyone feels the same as I feel when you bring harm to individuals who are profoundly disabled, and you allow this type of attitude, atmosphere, practice, and pattern, like the Jews who took a man to a tree and stuck him there because they wanted power, greed, and money, and more development. And now we find ourselves in the crisis of those who are here to advocate and protest of the abuse of the Los Angeles Police Department. Not that every individual in the police department is bad, but the criminals that do harm to the public and the color of authority should go before a hearing. And that hearing should expose them for what they are, who they are. The same as I brought out many times about cadets. Why would a grown man with a professional gun and handcuffs take a child to a barbecue and fuck a cadet? That's the embarrassment of this commission, this committee, and all these fucking assholes in the government who don't protect our children, don't protect civilians, and 42 U.S.C. 1983, fuck you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, who are the next four speakers?
Deep Singh, Adam Rice, Dan, and Corey Schmidt. Yes.
Yeah. I'm a religion professor, so let me just correct the brother's statement. It wasn't the Jews who advocated for that act. It was the Roman Empire. The police state known as the Roman Empire. A 2,000-year-old police state that has manifested on the shores of this Pacific land. But let me just read from the newspaper. The man who owned the house, Mr. Susser, talking about John Penny. Susser said John was not armed before police got to the scene, but he saw him break a glass bottle and later grab it by the neck. He later added that John did not lunge or act aggressively toward the officers, but that the officers might have gotten nervous when John began rummaging through his stuff on the ground. It seems to me that what is happening here is that the situation was created on the arrival of your police department. And that's the problem. Now, I want you to not just see the people who are out here, who are able to come on a Monday morning, right? College professors can do that sometimes, okay? I want you to see all the people that we represent who cannot make it out here. And I want you to remember that you are surrounded, that this is our land, that this land was unceded land that was taken over, and that we represent the people to whom that land originally belongs. We pay your salaries, we pay for your surveillance, and I've been having a real heck of a good time watching YouTube videos lately of what's happening in Hong Kong. If you want to sleep nice at night, I suggest getting your YouTube and Google Hong Kong and see what people are doing to the police in Hong Kong right now. It's kind of sad. It makes you feel a little bit bad for the police, but not really. Not really. I would hate for us to have to take over LAX to make you do your jobs.
Mr. Rice. Sir.
Right on. So let me begin this comment by saying it is a horrible thing for the family of the officer who was killed. Just as it was horrible for Grishario Mack's family. Just as it was horrible for Waukesha Wilson's family, who this commission tried to lock up, I believe. Just as it was horrible for Sister Lisa Risher, Yet again, who this commission tried to charge with terrorist acts. Yet again, who are the terrorists? Why would you charge a grieving aunt or mother? Because her emotions spilled over onto the people who murdered her family. That in itself is an act of terror. Yet again, the threat of violence or violence to influence the public action or discourse. When on the streets of Skid Row, the police show up with 10 officers for a street cleaning. I work on Skid Row every day. I walk up and down the streets talking to everyone that I see. I have never felt unsafe or I needed a gun to talk to people who were in a shitty situation. I don't know if you paid attention to the recent homeless count, but it stated that 721,000 people in this city are paying more than 50% for their rent. So what happens when they lose their job? What happens when they become one of these 70% of homeless people that don't have a mental issue or a drug problem? Are you going to kill them? But you definitely are making us think that we're in danger. Quit fucking up.
Dan?
Good morning. My name is Daniel Gus. I am on my second LAPD press pass. I just came from court this morning because I was going to sue the LAPD, and I did. Because every time I uncovered a story about corruption by Herb Wesson, by Eric Garcetti, by Mike Feuer, you people threatened to arrest me. And guess what? I did such a good job at it, you issued a second press pass. If I am threatened again, if this is not renewed, I will sue for retaliation and discrimination in 2 years. I'm telling you now. Make sure I get my third press pass in 2 years. This morning, my new column was read by Joel Grover and Patrick Healy at KNBC, by Steve Lopez. David Goldstein, David Zahnizer asked me for information on stories. I was a guest news host on KFI AM 640. But the LAPD 218 times threatened to arrest me every time I used my duly issued press pass. The first one, but not since the second one. This morning in court, an upcoming column I have will be about this sworn under penalty of perjury by Brian Hunn document. He says on June 10th, 2019, he put this legal notice under penalty of perjury in the mail on June 10th. But if he put this document in the mail on June 10th, how come a stamp on the third page is dated June 17th after he mailed it? How come this stamp here, if he mailed it on June 10th, is dated June 18th under penalty of perjury? How come if LAPD Inspector Brian Hunn put this in the mail on June 10th, the postmark on the envelope is June 24th? Your investigator is lying under penalty of perjury. Brian Hunn, contact me before I write about it and file a complaint with the Attorney General.
Sir, Corey Schmidt?
Okay, can you hear me okay? All right.
Sir.
So, first time being here, interesting. Just like to start off, as I always do, that this is a public forum, and that to anybody listening, that First Amendment right protects all speech. So if anybody's offended, I apologize for that. But it is everybody's right to say what they need to say. And on that note, it sounds like there's a lot of problems. I kind of bummed about that, but I feel like I would be, I don't know that an agent for change is a good way to put it, but I am a person pushing for change. So some people have called me the trash man, picking up trash, cleaning up the streets. It's what I'm trying to do, at least. So I'm here if you guys need anything. Just want to let you know I'm available, and that if anybody needs any help, I'm here. So take care.
Thank you.
And we have no other cards, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion for adjournment? Second? All in favor? That passes 4-0. We stand adjourned. Thank you.